Hey folks, Pat that Halloween movie collector, back with another ranking, and we're starting a new decade. We're going into the 80s. Yes, we finished the 70s. Excuse if I sound a little nasally. I'm just getting over being sick, but I had the time to record this, and I didn't want to let it pass up. So I sound a little gravelly voiced, but I do apologize. But I was so psyched because, wow, was 1980 tough to pick 10 albums. Didn't realize how hard it was going to be until I started really looking through my CDs and my vinyl, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of good stuff came out in 1980, and it wasn't hard to whittle it down to 10. But looking forward to this new decade. Looking forward to the next top 10 lists through every year of this decade, because it's going to be pretty crazy considering how all the different changes in styles of music that came in the 80s, and that I particularly love all the different styles as well. As usual, there was a lot that I had to leave off the table, a lot of honorable mentions, and here they are. Yeah, I know. A lot of great stuff on there. Good thing I'm not in your living room, because you can't throw shit at me for not putting it on my top 10. But at least I put it in my honorable mention. Right? Let's do this. Number 10, released on February 4th of 1980, The Ramones, End of the Century. Now, this one was one of their more polished albums, especially because it was produced by Phil Spector. And if you guys, older folk like myself, know who Phil Spector was, aside from all of the other stuff that he was involved in. He was a brilliant producer, created the Wall of Sound in the 60s. But he polished this album up. He actually kind of got on their nerves because they were not used to the type of recording that Phil Spector was used to doing. But it turned out a great album. It's got some great songs on there. Rock and Roll. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? Is one of my favorite songs by theirs. I mean, I love that. And I'm a big Kiss fan. Kiss actually did a cover of it that wasn't half bad. Rock and Roll High School's on here. They did their version of Chinese Rocks. If you've been watching these, I'm a big Johnny Thunders fan. And Chinese Rocks wasn't written by Johnny Thunders. He claimed it, but he didn't write it. Didi Ramone really wrote it, and Richard Hell. So they did their own version, since they didn't want to do it back in the 70s, because I guess they didn't want to be associated with, with heroin. And, hey, I love my Ramones, but Johnny Thunders did it better. This album, great. Is it the best Ramones album? No, but it was a good way to start off the 80s and it was a nice, real down and gritty Ramones album. Like I said, it turned a few people off because it was a little too polished, I guess. But I love it, and it lands number 10 on my list. Okay, 1980 is going to have it's going to have a wide spectrum. If you've been watching my top 10s, there's a large spectrum, and now we're going in opposite directions because I love the new wave and the punk that was starting to come in. So my number 9, released on September 2nd of 1980, The Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Love this. I love The Dead Kennedys. But this album is just, I have so many great memories of listening to this when I was younger. And yeah, it's an acquired taste, but you have to be into that style of music. I just absolutely loved all the releases that he did with Jello Biafra. I mean, they didn't do anything else with any other singers. It was just always with Jello. But every song on here is so much fun, and it's all satirical, especially if you know the Dead Kennedys, like Kill the Poor, Let's Lynch the Landlord, Chemical Warfare, probably the so-called well-known hit, which would be Holiday in Cambodia, California Oberales. Just, if you're a fan of this, is just every song on here is a staple of the Dead Kennedys, and this is just like a staple of my youth. I love the Dead Kennedys, and I just love everything on this album, and fun stuff. Number 8, sticking in the oddball lane, not necessarily oddball, because if you've watched this, I've professed my love for this band, and this goes back and forth between this and an album from the '79 list as my favorite, depending on what day you asked me. So released on November 3rd, 1980, The Damned, the Black Album. Now, I love the Black Album. It's such a big departure. It's almost like it's like their Sgt. Pepper's, because they started experimenting with different instruments and a lot of instrumentation to basically just show that hey, we're punk rockers, we're rockers, but they were all real good musicians. I mean, most punk rockers were just like 4-chord, 3-chord guitar player, just bam, bam, let's just like put it together and just play. But the Damned are just damn good musicians, no pun on that. But the Black Album's got probably my favorite Damned song, which is Wait for the Blackout. It's got History of the World Part 1, Lively Arts. There's so many good songs on here, and it's just an eclectic mix of songs, too, that blend well together. It's, the Damned were just sort of like Zap in a way, where their songs just blended into each other. There wasn't really any stop and starts on any of their albums. Same thing with Machine Gun Etiquette. Every song just blended into the next. And it's such a great album. If you haven't heard it, because it's... no pun intended again, it's called the Black Album. It's a little bit of a darker album, considering what they did in the beginning. Because like I said, this is a much different version than the first two albums with Brian James on the guitar. But go check it out. Really good album, the Black Album. All right, number 7, going in the opposite direction again. April 14th, 1980. We saw the release of Judas Priest, British Steel. The album that gave us Breaking the Law and Metal Gods. Yes, this out Steeler. This album is just chock full of metal anthems and metal songs that have stood the test of time, that everybody knows, and basically solidified Judas Priest as metal gods. Probably one of their earlier commercial hits in Living After Midnight came from this album. Song my band still plays to this day, my cover band. Because everybody knows it. It's a great anthem song to play at parties and when you're playing out. So I've talked ad nauseum about Judas Priest on many of these lists because I'm a big Priest fan. First concert I ever saw was Judas Priest. 1983, Defenders of the Faith. Love this album. Great songs on it. Great cover of the album. I was always cool. I always loved the covers of all of the Priest albums too. And this is right on the cusp of before they get that I don't know what you would call it, where all the cover started to look the same. Right at the point of entry where they had Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith, Turbo, it was all that same type of a design. I don't know if there's a name for it. Hit me up in the comments. I don't know if there was that design change where they all sort of were in the same vein. It was weird. Hey, my number 6, released on March 26, 1980. And they've been on every list for the past few years because I love this band and I love this damn guitar player. Rest in peace. Van Halen, Women and Children First. Another stellar output from the Van Halen gang. This is probably one of their it's a good precursor, I guess, because it's coming up to Fair Warning. Probably one of their heavier albums. I mean, the other albums, yeah, there's hard ass rock and roll, but this one just got some crazy shit like Romeo Delight and Everybody Wants Some and The Cradle Will Rock. There's some crazy heavier stuff on here, and they were just like balls to the wall. Take Your Whiskey Home was got that great intro, and this is just like a punch in the face album. Now the other, if you listen to the other Van Halen albums, which made this list, and I love them. They were there's so much. They're different in the sense that a lot of the songs are different. They're very experimental. Eddie was trying all sorts of different things. This is just straightforward. Look, we're just here to just kick you right in the dick, and this album from start to finish is just hard and heavy rock and roll, and I just fucking love it. Love it. So that's it. Van Halen, Women and Children First. Number 5, also released the same day as British Steel, some other British rockers making their debut on this list and their debut album on April 14th of 1980. Iron Maiden's Iron Maiden, the first release. Now, I discovered them through MTV, watching the videos when MTV started, and they had the early videos of with Paul Di'Anno, and I was just like, who are these guys? This is awesome. They had the big guy dressed as Eddie walking on the stage and blowing all the fog and everything, and I just love the music. And bought the album, and this album is just, oh god, it's just stacked with, it's a perfect blend of like punk and metal. They were like the first bridge. They really bridge punk and metal, in my opinion. And I just love Paul Di'Anno's voice. I love the first 2 albums because, of course, Killers is going to appear on one of those lists. And shout out to Paul Di'Anno, who we just lost. Rest in peace. He just passed away. But there's so many great songs on here. Running Free, the title track, Iron Maiden, Remember Tomorrow, Charlotte the Harlot. There's so much great stuff on here, and I love Bruce Dickinson. Don't get me wrong, but the first two main albums are still to this day my favorite. I just love everything about them, and just love that rawness. And they were all in the same vein. If you watch the videos, they're very similar to Priest in the way they dress. Paul Di'Anno had all the leather and the chains and all that stuff, which Maiden eventually sort of dropped that. I guess it was what was basically coming out of England at that time, because it was all around the same time. But this release, and got the first iconic look at Eddie on this album, right? To appear on all these albums and iconic artwork that Iron Maiden is so famous for. All right, at number 4, released on May 20th, 1980. You knew it was going to be on this list somewhere. And I couldn't have put it any higher than this. But Kiss Unmasked, because I do love it. I mean, you figure in 1980 I was 8 years old, so I liked all different types, just like now. Different genres of music, different styles of music. So I was never like, oh God, Kiss is selling out because they've become pop. I liked it either way. I mean, of course, now that I know a lot more about music and I've broadened my taste and I'm a lot fucking older, I can look back at it and see, I'm like, it's an okay pop record. It's got some good songs on it, but it's definitely not their best effort by no means. Peter Criss doesn't play a lick on this. He just appears on the cover. It's all Anton Fig on the drums. There was a lot of stuff going on in the band at the time. Ace is just about to check out. Gene wants to be a celebrity, so it was not a cohesive effort whatsoever. There's some fun stuff on here. I mean, Shandy is probably the only song most people know. I mean, it was a semi-hit in Australia. Is That You? Naked City. She's So European. There's some really strange songs that, like, if you put this album on right after, say, Rock and Roll Over or something, are these the same bands? It's totally different. But you know what? I still like it. It's not their best effort by a long shot. Go check out my ranking of all the Kiss albums. But it had to be on here, and I couldn't put it any higher up on the list, I should say, because I did listen to it a lot. I still do, because I'm a big Kiss fan. That's just what you do. So I thought, okay, fair. Let's put it at number 4. All right, by number 3, released on April 25th of 1980, the debut of Ronnie James Dio with Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Love this album. There's so much good stuff on this album. It's a heavier record, and it just took Sabbath in a different direction that I loved. I mean, don't get me wrong, Sabbath is one of my favorite bands of all time with Ozzy. I love everything Ozzy did with them. But this is just like something separate, and it was so great. I liked how they called the band Heaven and Hell right before, and they were touring as Heaven and Hell before Ronnie James passed. But God, so many great songs on here, from Neon Nights, Heaven and Hell, Lady Evil, Children of the Sea. There's so much great stuff on here. Ronnie brought a different flavor to the band, and it was just ushered in like a heavier, more melodic sound. And it was perfect. It just started the 80s, and I wish would have lasted a little bit longer. And we know all the shit that had the turmoil and all the other crap that happened with Sabbath in the 80s. But there's another good one coming, and it'll probably be on that list. And number 2, released on July 25th, 1980. And I didn't check the stats on this, but it's probably in the top 3 biggest selling albums of all time. The return of AC/DC with AC/DC Back in Black, the debut of Brian Johnson after the tragic loss of our beloved Bon Scott. Now, this album, I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody knows this album. Everybody knows probably every song on this album, because every song on this album is on classic rock radio on a daily basis. From Hell's Bells to You Shook Me All Night Long to Back in Black, Have a Drink on Me, Shoot the Thrill, Giving the Dog a Bone, Rock and Roll Ain't No Noise Pollution. I don't even have to look at it. I just know it all in my head, every single song. And it's great. Love this album. I don't even know what more to say about it, but man, it just took AC/DC in a different direction, because with Bon Scott, it was straightforward, like bluesy rock and roll. They had a lot of blues influence and a lot of the stuff, especially the earlier AC/DC stuff. This just took it like hard rock. They became hard rock here, which is not a bad thing. There's still the blues influence and everything, but you didn't hear a lot of the bluesier stuff. I mean, okay, maybe rock and roll ain't Noise Pollution has a little bit of the bluesy riff. And the beginning of Have a Drink on Me's got a little bit of a bluesier thing, but Brian Johnson made it sound a little bit heavier, which is not bad. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it just took them in a different direction, and it just took them fucking to the stratospheres with this album. My God, I mean, how many people out there don't have this? Well, if you're old like me, don't have who doesn't have the vinyl or the CD, or nowadays who doesn't have it on their Spotify, whatever other fucking streaming services are out there? Because I'm too old. I don't have any of that shit. I still use my CDs. Here we are at number one, released on September 20th, 1980. This album blew me away, and still does. One of my favorite guitar players ever is on this album. And I'm sure you figured it out by now. Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz. I remember Randy Rhoads dying. I remember like it was yesterday. 1982 was a shit year, man. Lost John Belushi, lost Randy. It was a real crap year for people I idolized. And I remember hearing this album, and I hadn't started playing guitar yet, but I just loved music in general, and I just remember hearing this album and hearing him play. And yeah, everybody can sit there and say, you know, a lot of it was Eddie Van Halen type stuff with the tapping and the way he played, but it was just something different about the way Randy played. It was just so much more melodic and I don't know, just deeper meaning, because he was such a student of music that things just blended together, and the solos were just intricate as all shit. I mean, I found this out more so as I got older, playing guitar and tried to play some of that stuff. And oh man, just love every song on this album. There's not a stinker, from I Don't Know to Crazy Train, No Bone Movies, Suicide Solution, Goodbye to Romance. And I remember when I got an acoustic guitar, I had to learn how to play D, because I'm like, Jesus, I was obsessed with Randy Rhoads. And man, just think of the stuff he could have did had he not gotten on that fucking plane. Two of my guitar idols, dead because of fucking planes that they shouldn't have been on to begin with. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Randy Rhoads. Unbelievable. But this album, there was a few here I had a fight with to put first, because I mean, I love Heaven and Hell. Don't get me wrong, and AC/DC, but man, this album, I still listen to it all the time. Albeit, I do tend to listen to Tribute a lot, because I love the live versions of these songs. Because Tribute is just fantastic. Would love to have seen him live, and I never got a chance to see him live. He was dead before I saw Ozzy for the first time. And there you have it. That is my top 10, my favorite albums released in 1980. Let me know yours. Throw them in the comments below. Hit that like button if you like top 10 lists. If you like to talk about different styles of music for each year in specific decades. I started with the 70s. After I get up closer, maybe I'll consider the 60s, because I know a lot of albums from the 60s, but not as much as I could really. I don't know if I could pick a top 10, maybe top 5, or maybe my 10 favorite albums of the 60s, the whole decade. That might be something a little bit easier to do. But yeah, let me know yours in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. My voice will get better. I won't be as hoarse, but you know what? I had the time to do this, and I'm bored as hell sitting at home, getting better. So I was like, let me just record this. I got the time to do it. I actually got somewhat of a voice back. I didn't have it earlier for the past few days. But let me know some that I missed, even in the honorable mention section, because I just went by what I have. I look through my discs. I go by what I like the best, and I look through likes of the vinyl, and I will go online and look a little bit just in case I missed something. But I try to pick the ones that I know I listen to the most, ones that are particularly my favorite. And that's the way I base my list. And let me know what your favorites are, because I'd love to hear them. Let me know if some of the ones that are on my list landed on your list. Okay? And then now I'll be back with 1981, maybe another week or two. I'll have my voice back, hopefully, by then. I won't be sounding like Peter Brady, where my voice is changing, because I'm sure as fuck not that young. And we'll go from there. Do me a favor, comment, like, subscribe, all that fun horse shit, and then I will see you for 1981. Talk to you soon.